Welcome back folks, my name is LastKnownMeal and this is going to be my review of Elex 2. I had a good chunk of time to go through the game and experience everything it has to offer. So today we're going to talk about everything good and bad for Elex 2 and what it has to offer. Look at each segment of the game and see if it's a worthy successor to Elex 1 and a worthy Piranha Bytes game. First off, let me explain my history with Piranha Bytes. This channel started on Gothic and that's my favorite game of all time, so automatically I will know what I'm getting into when I play this. So if you played ever a Piranha Bytes game, you can close your eyes and imagine everything it usually has to offer in both good terms and bad terms like jank and so on. Well, this game is going to have all of it. And from the first moment I got into it, I knew, yeah, this is their usual formula. You are still on the planet of Megalan, and some years have passed since the events of the first game. You still play as Jax, but as it is a tradition in any Piranha Bytes game, some things will happen and you will lose all of your powers and everything you knew from the first game. Then you will have to make your way around a relatively huge open world map that lets you explore as you want to explore. So the game itself won't have limitations to where you move besides putting in stronger monsters in certain areas of the zone that will kind of say, I am not really ready for this one. But of course, as it is a tradition in their games, they will fill the entire world with low and high level enemies, meaning that even in the starting zone you will have monsters that can pretty much one-hit you, and the learning curve of how you fight and interact with the world is still there. Of course, on the map itself they put a really nice thing because you can actually put a marker if you see a monster you cannot fight yet or a chest you cannot open to return later on, and you will be unlocking and using teleporters to navigate around the terrain and different areas, so from that perspective it's not going to be tedious. Gameplay will revolve again around Jax trying to unite Megalan to fight a common threat, and those are the alien race which came to pretty much destroy and overtake the world. And that's pretty much all that I will talk about when it comes to the story spoilers. But the story, I mean, so far without spoiling anything, it's alright. It has its twists and turns, and sometimes it's going to be, this is really nice, and sometimes it's going to be, yeah, this could have been better. So the story it's good, it's okay. It's not going to win any Oscars, but it's not bad from that perspective. Through your travels, you will be interacting with various people, doing all sorts of quests, from the small ones, which are mostly going to be fetch me this, fetch me that, to more of the main story-based quests, where this formula is going to break a bit, and quests themselves are going to have various twists and turns, and through that you will have to make some important decisions. Even the small ones will count on later on, so if you screw someone over, they might remember that, and of course get back to you later on. Or maybe that will be tied to a fact, and your decisions will decide your reputation with them, so be careful how you make those decisions. And again, the game will be bombarding you with all kinds of decisions every time you do a quest. As you level up, you will put attribute points into strength, dexterity, intelligence, cunning, and so on, which will allow you to carry different weapons of your choice, going from melee ones like swords, axes, to shields, to crossbows, bows, and rifles to take on your enemies. Of course, you will have armor slots, and you can find those armor pieces, buy them, and of course receive stronger ones as you join a faction, or maybe if you don't join a faction. I'm not going to be spoiling that, but of course the game will be offering you, various types of armors later on to make you a lot stronger, but that's pretty much as it is with any Piranha Bytes games. Every single armor in the game, like those bigger ones, are going to be tied to the role you have in that faction and which faction you ultimately decide to join or not join. One thing I like is that the story itself is not going to be too linear, so you can actually go to a city which is not, let's say, the first one or the closest one to you. Obviously you will have stronger monsters in those areas, but the game won't limit you in that sense, blocking you where you have to go. When you level up, you also get learning points that you can spend with various trainers all over the map, and each trainer will train you in different things that will either be combat, lockpicking, crafting, speech, and so on, that will help you through your adventures. And of course, as I said, all of those abilities will help you later on as you fight. And as I said, in this game you can collect stuff around the map that you can use later on to craft new weapons, fix broken ones, craft potions, insert gems into weapons, the usual RPG stuff that Piranha Bytes likes to put in their games. So you will have a lot of side activities you can do besides the usual ones, including cooking, which is going to give you access to various recipes that will of course help you in combat and the way you move around the map. When it comes to the characters themselves, they are okay in my opinion, nothing too crazy overall where those characters are going to stand out. They're pretty much going to be okay, you know, depending on the voice acting, because sometimes voice acting is good, sometimes it can definitely be questionable at times, and you know that comes with the character design itself. Some characters you will forget straight away, while some characters will kind of stay lingering in your head for some time. But honestly, I haven't seen a character which made it really stand out, but at least those characters will act differently and have different ideals depending on the faction they're in. So you kind of have to navigate your way around people as well, depending which faction they're in. When it comes to the graphics of the game, I think it's okay. You know, some textures and just detail on the map is going to be generally weak, but they play a lot with light in this game. So you will have, you know, sometimes you'll experience parts of the map which are going to be breathtaking, like the trees and the forests and hills around you are going to be filled to the brim with like stuff they put into the game, because they, again, as I said, they make this map by hand. They don't randomly generate it. And that light can sometimes be really cool. For example, when you're going through the forest and you will have the sun go through those leaves and hit you really nice. So it's going to paint a really nice picture and it's going to immerse you. From the immersive perspective, like, I didn't really have problems immersing myself into this game, just because they fill the map with various objects and various places you can explore and find new things that will also tell you the story of the world. Before that, you can kind of imagine what this place was prior to like the world being destroyed by the comet itself. Characters models, on the other hand, are maybe the weakest point. I mean, don't expect any next-gen faces or character movements. They pretty much stay the same overall, and even talking with those NPCs will be your classic back and forth. Like, just, you know, you can look at these faces right now in the game and they're gonna be like, okay, like nothing special. I think they definitely need more complexity if you ask me, but yeah, on that perspective, it's alright. Same when it comes to the sounds in this game. Music overall is nice and plays a good symmetry with the world, you know, it helps paint that picture. While some sound elements like, you know, hitting some objects and enemy, or when Jax, for example, walks around some surfaces that can either be metal or water, the sound can be a little bit low quality, and it even sounds like that MP3 file you just download to put in your project. You know, it's not the best. And it even comes down to balancing, because sometimes those sounds are going to be much louder than they're supposed to be, and it seems like they're not even connected to the atmosphere of the world. Like, they're not responding to the environment they're in, that either being closed space or open space. You know, it doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it can be incredibly noticeable. When it comes to the combat of the game, it's much better than Elex 1. It's much more responsive. Enemies will no longer be absolute tanks that attack randomly, so your overall experience in that field should be better than it was in Elex 1. Because your attacks will be a lot more responsive, in the sense of you will be able to combine light and heavy attacks, and even like those monsters will respond differently to your attacks. So if, for example, if you lower their stamina too much, they're just going to fall out flat, and you will be able to do a lot more damage while they are on the ground. But keep in mind, those monsters require incredibly fast, so again, you will have to really pay attention how you fight those monsters. Besides the usual movement, you can actually do dodge, you can do roll. You know, sometimes that roll and that dodge can be problematic because it has that level of Piranha Bytes jank, as I said, into it, so sometimes it's not going to work as it should. But honestly, it's much better than Elex 1, especially once you use a jetpack, which I'm gonna tell you, the sounds of jetpack can be very questionable sometimes, but at least the jetpack is now going to fly straight away once you use it. There isn't going to be that delay, and the controlling of that jetpack is going to be much better, especially later on once you get an upgrade to it, and you will be able to fly really far across the map, which is going to be incredibly cool. Playing with bow and crossbow though can be sometimes, because the way the weapon fires and the way like the Jax reacts to it and the way camera and movement reacts to it, is not really that satisfying, and it can be incredibly basic, especially because enemies are also kind of difficult to fight with ranged weapons at start. I don't know, but yeah, like for example, if you're not using a rifle or if you're using a bow later on, then you're actually gonna do some damage, but at first melee weapons are definitely going to be your weapon of choice. Now, as I said, the game itself does have that usual Piranha Bytes level of jank, which means sometimes your actions, the way you play, the way enemies play, and their AI reacts can be all over the place. But if anything, monsters have a variety of different attacks, so even if you run away from the monster and maybe use a jetpack to climb somewhere, like for example a small hill, you will have a situation where the monster is actively going to jump on you and throw a rock straight into your face, although those rocks will be tied directly to your character, which I think is stupid. It doesn't revolve any skill. It's more like you have to move in a certain moment, otherwise there is 100% chance that you will be hit, even if you change the direction of that of your character like too fast. Like the boulder itself is going to track you, which I think is kind of stupid in my opinion. And sometimes like the monster is going to throw a rock and you know he wasn't supposed to throw a rock in that direction, but the AI just made it, like for example, for the rock to track your exact position. So of course, with enemies doing all kinds of attacks, you know, it's going to increase that anxiety because again, enemies in this game can pretty much destroy you if you're not careful. So fighting and the way you fight is incredibly important in this game, especially because, as I said, you'll be using cooking, you'll be using various recipes to increase your combat proficiency. And at the same time, you'll have to use that food, for example, that you make to heal you, besides, you know, using the usual healing potions that might be a little bit too expensive at the beginning. Same for other bugs in the game. I mean, I didn't have any usual AAA bugs where everything around me was breaking, but you know, sometimes your character might do a bad animation, or maybe like things won't work exactly as you want them. But overall, I didn't have bugs that completely broke my game, you know, and to the point where it was actually ruining my experience. It's janky, but it's not buggy to the point where it's just annoying all over the place, because they don't have too many moving pieces in this game. So of course, when you don't have too many moving pieces, there are less chances something is going to break like entirely. When it comes to the PC performance, it was alright, nothing too crazy. Sometimes, you know, FPS can dip to very low, which is problematic considering I'm running this on 3070 Ti. So, you know, I hope there are some optimization after the game comes out. I mean, it depends really where you are on the map, you know. Sometimes lowering my settings did help, but not too much to the point where I said I was okay with it. Especially when you consider graphics in this game, and when you consider the amount of stress 3070 Ti has to go to run this sometimes. It can be worrying in my opinion, so hopefully once this releases on all systems it's going to be good. Keep in mind, I cannot vouch for last and current gen consoles. I only play this game on PC, so I have no idea how the game is going to run on consoles themselves, so I suggest going and seeing that gameplay once the game is out, or well, people who review console versions of the game. Overall, I think Elex 2 is a very decent game, especially when it comes to that RPG side. Again, Piranha Bytes was not aiming to put out something which is going to be bigger than their previous games, but rather just improve the problems of the first one. They're playing it very safe here, meaning a lot of their gameplay formula and RPG formula from before will stay here, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, sometimes sticking to what you usually do, especially with limited resources this company has, you know, is for the best. And of course, they were not going for a Gothic game here, but rather your classic Piranha Bytes RPG experience, which some might, you know, for some might be bad, you know, because it didn't improve too much, but for me personally, as an old PB fan, I think this is okay, because it hooked me well enough that I want to go back to the game and explore more and look at what other things the world has to offer. And I think for as long as the game does that really well, I think it's okay. You know, sometimes, as I said, the quests are going to be somewhat boring, somewhat fetchy in that sense, but I think the game will also supplement you with a lot of things which are going to make things worthwhile. You know, each locations, as I said on the map, will be either abandoned houses or locations that are going to be inviting you, because you never know what you can find, and devs, as I said, place a lot of things you can pick up, from just various potions and items used for crafting to full-on artifacts, you know, legendary weapons that can be incredibly powerful later on. So exploration is definitely rewarding in that sense. Look, personally, I think the game is fun. They're not setting any barriers here, but they haven't ruined their usual formula, so I think it's a definitive win, honestly. Do I personally recommend this game? Well, if you played previous PB games and you like them, you will like this one, because again, they pretty much stayed where they were before. For new players, there is definitely that learning curve, but I think it's much better than it was in Elex 1, especially because combat is a little bit more optimized. Now, it's still janky, but a lot more optimized than it did before, so I think the game might grab your attention much sooner than the first entry in the series, but expect, as I said, Piranha Bytes levels of jank. But from the RPG perspective, the game is very solid, and honestly, they don't make these sort of RPG games anymore, so for me personally, it's always good to experience this formula again. You know, they played it safe, but it turned out to be quite good. But again, I advise always looking at other opinions and see what they have to say about this review. And this is everything for today. Thank you so much for watching. Tell me down below what do you think about all of this, and also subscribe and like the video for more Elex 2 and other RPG videos. Join our growing community on Twitter and Discord, and as always, stay classy everyone. This is LKM signing out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.